Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Profiles in Risk. I am your host, Nick Lamparelli. I am very pleased on this Friday afternoon. You can see my parka. It's autumn. It's cold out. I'm playing that how long can I wait before I turn the heat on? So it's a good way to end a Friday talk InsurTech with Jason Silver. Jason is VP of Sales for insurance for Vlocity in North America. And I would like to welcome him and finish off a Friday with a bang. Jason, happy Friday.
Thank you, Nick. Happy Friday. I love your Golden Gate Bridge in the background there.
Did you survive InsurTech Connect?
We did. It was a great show. You know, it's exciting to see how fast these things are growing. I think when I went to InsurTech last year, I think there was probably half the amount of people there, and this year it's just becoming almost overwhelming. It's huge.
Yeah. I heard 7,000.
No, it seems like there were more than 7,000 there, but that's probably a good number to go with.
7,000 people, probably 12 hours a day, blisters on my feet. That's the most interesting thing about Vegas is everything is so close yet so far away.
It's true. So many people. I just felt like getting herded like cattle at one point there.
Yeah, definitely. I kick off every episode giving you a little bit of a platform. Vlocity, what is it?
So Vlocity, we've been around for about 5 years now, and we're actually given $60 million from Salesforce and got about another $100 million in venture capital funding to go out and actually build a digital insurance platform directly on top of Salesforce. And so we've actually built that complete policy lifecycle directly natively inside of the Salesforce clouds. We're able to do quoting, we're able to do billing, policy admin, where we're able to do transactions and different kinds of endorsements. We have a claims engine that we've built out. We've also built out this thing that we call the agile middle office. We've built out a rules engine, a rating engine, a product catalog, as well as capabilities to be able to integrate in different systems as well. Now, I mentioned, our rules engine, rating engine, product catalog, even policy admins and claim systems. There's a lot of them out there. And sometimes it can be a holy war where, an organization, a carrier has invested sometimes hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion into a system like this. And so we understand that there's certain things that just aren't going to be replaced, but there's certain things that they also want to digitally transform. And that's where really Vlocity comes in, because if you have a rating engine that you truly love today, we'll just integrate that in with Vlocity. Or if you have a product catalog that you really want to use and it has some sort of an API, we can talk to it with Vlocity. So we're able to quote and do, all kinds of different transactions from a single platform and support multiple different lines of business as well on top of the Vlocity platform.
Yeah, so a couple things to unpack there that I think are important. First, why Salesforce? Can you talk about the advantages of building on top of Salesforce versus just building an entire platform from scratch?
Absolutely. That's a really great question, because the thing that we utilize from a Salesforce perspective by way of the platform is all the security that's built in, all the scalability that's built in. They are the number one customer success platform in the world for a reason, and we want to make sure that we leverage it. And it's much faster to actually build a company on Salesforce than if you wanted to go out and rent some servers from AWS or Microsoft or whatever the case may be. That's just really renting infrastructure. What we have in place is really a full application that's built on top of the Salesforce platform. And if we didn't do it on top of the Salesforce platform, it probably would have taken us a couple more years in order to build something like this.
Yeah. So when we originally talked, I think we said let's get this on record, let's record this, and let's theme it innovating within insurance. And you just brought up the fact that a lot of companies in the ecosystem have spent tens, hundreds. If you're right, and there's been $1 billion invested by some company, like that's just mind blowing. I want to go into that a little bit more, because I think that's part of what I thought was so interesting and why I wanted to record this with you is because you have a lot of those companies in the ecosystem that have already invested a ton in IT, and so talk to us how the engagement would work between Vlocity and those companies that have already invested a lot. They're probably going to look at what
Yeah.
you have and just say, why would we invest more? Talk about the advantages of, adding the digital element through the way that you do it versus just adding another platform.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So what we've noticed is that, with these large carriers, they tend to not put all of their products on these large policy admin systems. And they're always playing keep up with the Joneses in terms of the lemonades and the new insurtechs that come out. So they want to be able to spin up products rapidly, not taking years to do it. And that's the great thing about Vlocity is that we're able to spin up and, really put products out into production in months instead of years. And that's what makes us much different than a lot of the other people in the industry. And, we work with a lot of large carriers out there that are using those traditional policy admin products that still come to us and say, you know what, we just want to spin up this one product, but we don't want to do it in 18 months. We want to do it in 3 months. Can you help us, Vlocity? And that's really where we come in because we get things done. My CEO likes to say faster, better, cheaper. And that's really what we're doing here. And it's been amazing just to see how we've transformed some of these customers.
Yeah, so you're looking at your background coming into insurance. I'm curious as to from the landscape that you're viewing things. What's necessary to change here? What do you think is required for companies that have invested tens or hundreds of millions of dollars? What's the mindset that you think that they're going to need to have in order to evolve to the next generation of products, services, business models?
That's a really good question because, even some people on my team struggle with that, but it's really being able to find a visionary at that insurance organization, at that carrier, really a change agent, somebody that is tired of the business processes that are in place today and want to help streamline things and maybe look at things a little bit differently to try to keep up with some of the other organizations out there that are taking, mind share and revenue dollars away from some of these carriers, like some of these, new insurance companies that are doing things based on usage, which is very different than a lot of the other traditional carriers that don't sell insurance those ways. And I can tell you that if these old carriers don't start changing their ways, they may not be around for too much longer.
Okay, so phase one. Older carrier. I was actually talking to someone that I'm going to meet in a couple of weeks. This particular carrier is almost 200 years old. Okay, so I used to sell for them. I don't know a lot about their IT infrastructure. I'm kind of assuming that there's a lot of baggage there. So let's unpack this a little bit. Phase one for a very old carrier that has a lot of IT baggage. What's beyond just the visionary? What's phase one look like in terms of trying to turn the corner? What would you recommend?
So phase one is really for us to sit down and talk to them about, what are some of the newer products that they're trying to launch that are maybe backlogged that they just can't launch because of their systems that are holding them back? That's really a great place to start because you'd be surprised when you ask that question, how many carriers have an Excel spreadsheet with sometimes 20 to 100 different products that they want to release, but their systems are holding them back. So it's really determining, where some of that low-hanging fruit is and how we can get them quick wins. Because in these old insurance companies, it's taken them forever to do some of these projects. And if you can show them a quick win in a matter of months, it's game-changing for these guys and it gets them to start to think differently.
Yeah. So if I can kind of summarize that, don't break what's currently working. Take what you would have tried to implement on the older system and implement that on something that's newer.
Exactly. I would absolutely agree with that. And, we have run into those organizations that, their legacy systems, they're just tired of managing them. Some of them are mainframe based. Some of them are built on AS400s or even, just on-premise just older servers, and they just don't want to be in the business of managing that anymore. So some of them are actually coming to us to do 100% conversions. Those are not as common as some of the other carriers that just want to launch a product or two here or there, but they are coming to us these days, and it's surprising how many of them are saying, we just want to look at a full system replacement.
Okay, so what does that look like? Because to me, that would be probably where a lot of the industry would get hung up, where you would get hung up as a company, where all of a sudden, you have, let's say, a company that has homeowners, auto, small business, and they need to convert over to that, but you have a lot of underwriters, actuaries, claims people are saying, whoa, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Walk us through what a framework might look like to do that sort of conversion.
Yeah, so I would never ever tell anybody to do it all at once. We never want to do a big bang. We obviously want to phase it in. We would look at, what are your most important lines of business first, and those are the ones we probably want to get on the system first, just to make sure that everything is working 100% properly and that you're seeing lifts from the system as well. The other thing that we try to tell these organizations when we sit down with them, if we are going to do a full system replacement, let's just not do a lift and shift. Let's take a look at what some of those processes look like today, and how do we make them better in Vlocity? Yep. Because we sat down with a lot of organizations that really like the way they're doing things today and just want to move it into a new system. And my question back to them is, well, why move it into a new system then if you really don't want to change too much? So it's really, like I said, understanding what some of those key products and lines of businesses are, getting those on the system first, and then just having a roadmap in place with the business and IT on when things are going to go live and sticking to that roadmap. And the way that you really stick to that roadmap is by making sure you have the right team in place, the right team from the carrier side, and the right team, obviously, from the IT perspective and from an implementation partner as well. Now, we do services here at Vlocity, but we rely heavily on some of our partners like Accenture, like Deloitte, like PwC, a lot of those big guys out there. We work with some of the smaller guys as well, but we rely heavily on some of these organizations to make sure that these projects are going to run properly.
Do you recommend with those kinds of projects where there is either partial or full transition, right, over to a new platform, that things get run in parallel for a while? Like, hey, let's keep the old system running. We'll set up the new one and kind of run it alongside, and then at some point we'll unplug. Is that something that you do or recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have a parallel approach just to make sure that everything is working 100% perfect. Because even from a claims perspective, they need to be right 100% of the time, not 99% of the time. So we make sure that we have some sort of a lifeline there in terms of the older system. And then when we're 100% sure that everything is working the way that it's supposed to be, then we'll do a system cutover where we'll just be on the new system at that point.
What do you need to see from the senior leadership? How do you know? I know not all projects probably are successful. Maybe you're the exception, where every single one is a home run. But what would you like to see from the senior executives or the leadership for these companies to know that, hey, this is probably going to be successful, or this probably we may struggle with this because of that? What must be the culture or the mindset of senior leadership in order to make this successful?
That's a great question. And it comes back down to methodology. We like to do an agile methodology by way of the projects that we do, where if you're going to fail, you're going to fail fast, or if you're going to succeed, you're going to succeed fast. So we like to make sure that we're aligned just from a methodology perspective, and agile is a methodology that we like to use from a development perspective. And then it also goes back to, the thing I mentioned earlier about making sure that we have the right team in place from both sides. And the right team means that, we have an executive on their end, somebody that really has some skin in the game, that really wants to see this thing through from a business perspective. You got to have an IT executive as well. And you got to make sure those guys are aligned. And then usually from a Vlocity perspective, we'll have an executive from our end, might even be our CEO, that wants to make sure this project is going to be 100% successful. So we will have regular touch points, almost quarterly business reviews, but when a project's underway, we do a lot more than per quarter, just to make sure that everybody's getting what they need to out of the relationship. And we also, if there's a carrier out there that says, Jason, we really need to have this feature and function in the next release of your product. The great thing is we do agile development here ourselves. We have 3 releases a year on our product. And if we feel that, that feature is really important and that other customers are going to be able to utilize it as well, we'll put it right in the product as fast as we can. So that's the thing about us that makes us a little bit different than a lot of the others out there as well.
Yeah, no, that's it's a good message. I'm always concerned about senior leadership's kind of defaulting to an IT department, just say kind of run this, when in fact, like, I feel like IT can no longer be a separate department, almost has to be part and parcel of the culture of the company, so you don't run into this problem after the platform's been developed and 10 years from now you got to do it all over again.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's really important to have that relationship between the business and IT, and it needs to be senior leaders that have that relationship internally. Literally, there's a handshake between those guys or gals just to make sure these projects run successfully.
Yeah. You kind of peering out into the future, what is your take on just insurance in general? We just came back from InsurTech Connect, so things are changing rapidly. That's it's between AI and machine learning and drones and all of this stuff going on. What's going on at Vlocity to make sure that you guys are keeping up with all of the modern technology to make sure that you can then deliver it down to your carrier partners?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, I was actually taken back by InsurTech Connect when I went out there and just noticed how many new AI companies out there and how many drone companies there were out there.
Yeah.
So some things that we're doing here at Vlocity is we think that IoT is going to be huge around insurance. It already is becoming huge. If you have a specific device in your house, maybe you get, cheaper homeowners insurance because of it. So what we're actually doing here is we're developing hooks into IoT platforms so we can help, monitor those platforms, and then also bill based on that, and obviously, manage policies based on that as well. So we think that IoT is going to be extremely hot. Obviously AI, there's some things that we're doing with the help of Salesforce around AI, since they made that acquisition of Tableau that's being rolled into their Einstein product. So we're figuring out new ways to actually integrate that data into Vlocity as well, so we can utilize it for selling and servicing policies. But, what we'd love to do at some point is figure out how we're going to start to incorporate some of that drone data as well into Vlocity, just because, I'd never seen so many drone companies in my entire life, them coming back from InsurTech Connect. And in talking with our general manager, there's definitely going to hopefully be some synergies there between what we're doing and how we can start to incorporate some of that drone data as well. But I'd be curious as to your take on that as well. You went to ITC and you've probably been there a couple times more than I have. What were your thoughts about some of the new technology that's been spinning up?
Yeah, first time.
Really? First time at ITC? Wow. Okay.
that I had been there, which is pretty amazing. Just there's how much the industry has transformed. So when InsurTech was first a word, I felt like I knew all the players, and then you go to ITC and you don't recognize anybody. You occasionally bump into folks that you already know, but man, from all over the world, it's crazy. The ability of AI to read imagery, and so not just the drones, like I'm seeing companies like Betterview. There's a few others that can take satellite imagery and run AI on it and basically say, yeah, we can see hail damage to your roof, or your roof is of this quality, which is in property insurance is a fantastic and necessary element to what's going on. So to me that's just crazy how many, as you mentioned, how many AI companies and how many drone companies, how many imagery companies exist. I don't know how they all survive, frankly. I think there's a struggle there, but for the carrier space, I think they're going to be swimming in a lot of data, and that's probably my biggest concern, is that with
There's
all the
they're all going to
data
need.
that they're going to have. They're not going to know what to do with it without companies like ours to kind of help them provide the insight. I didn't even know Salesforce was with Tableau now, so that's a perfect
Yeah.
like segue for this. Like someone has to sit there as an interface and basically say you have all this data, but someone has to be able to present it in a BI. Smart BI way to executives and leadership and whatever, so they can draw insights from it. That's the thing I'm most concerned about.
Yeah, I think you're going to start to see more of those data lakes start to pop up by way of big data. You know, the Clouderas and those guys out there probably running a lot of this data and then needing tools just to mine it and figure out, you know, making really sense of it.
Yeah, I keep hearing about how like data is the new oil, which might be the case, you know, but you need a refinery, right? Like the oil itself is worthless without the refinery, without something to convert it to gasoline or plastic or whatever. It's the raw material, and I feel like the data is going to be the same. If there aren't the refineries to convert it to something that's useful, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros, right?
I agree, and I think that's why we're going to start to see a host of all kinds of new analytics players out there as well to start to mine that data and really report on it.
Yeah, I'm giving a presentation in October on the future of technology in insurance, and that's a lot of my my presentation will center around the message of, hey, don't believe the fear of that AI is going to replace your jobs and all of this, because at the end of the day, one, someone has to build the AI. So there's, someone has to build the robots. There's going to be jobs there. Someone has to keep those up to date and
Oh yeah.
maintain those. But then on the flip side, someone has to be able to interpret. The AI is going to deliver things for you. Yes, I think it's going to do a lot of the mundane and routine things, but someone still has to make a decision. Someone still has to say, where are the margins? As the way I guess, Jason, the way I sort of explain this, I'm in the natural catastrophe space. Everyone just sort of when companies pitch me, they're always like, "We will help you find the low risk flood exposures," and I always have to remind them, like, well, that's the exposures everybody wants. There's going to be no
Mm-hmm.
margin there because that's where all the competition is going to kind of gravitate towards. I want that sweet spot where
Right.
the losses aren't too severe, they're manageable, but there's significant margin on it, and someone has to be able to make those business decisions. And that's going to be my message at this conference is, don't forget the business part. Don't forget that someone has to make decisions off of this. Someone needs to be able to make money off of it.
Exactly. But at least now they're going to be in a position to actually make intelligent decisions, where before it was a little more difficult to try to make those decisions.
Correct. And so I think part of, if you're looking for probably, some sort of historical precedent of, where has insurance been somewhat disrupted in the past, it's been on the natural catastrophe side, because we've had catastrophe models. So all of this great AI stuff, well, I think we have a precedent. The models that were created in the late 1980s really revolutionized how property insurance was done. And what ended up happening was everybody used the same models. Everyone came to the same decision, and you still needed someone to pull a trigger. You still needed, like, it created a whole new set of jobs and employment in the insurance industry as it evolved from, hey, we're dumb, to, hey, we're smart, we're smarter, or we could be smarter. How do we use this stuff? What do we, how do we make decisions now?
There's never, and it's kind of weird to say this, there's never been a more exciting time for insurance than today.
Yeah.
Just because of all the new technology, all the new business models that are coming to market. And it's just the greatest thing for a consumer today that actually wants to go out and buy insurance, because there's so many different ways you can buy it. There's so many different types of products. It's just become a consumer's paradise for insurance. And then it's really up to the carrier to distinguish themselves on what makes them different, and why even a millennial should come and buy life insurance from them, who's probably never bought anything close to that in the past. So it's really, and that's the thing that we're trying to help these carriers do, is really distinguish distinguish themselves from the others out there. And we do that by, our products, by, really the user experience and making it much different than some of the others that are out there. I mean, you have these Lemonades of the world, and that's why a lot of people go there, is because they have such a great user experience. And that's what we're trying to do for a lot of the kind of more traditional carriers, even though we love working with the insurtechs as well. But we're really trying to help digitally transform some of those older carriers that it's been very difficult for them to do in the past.
Yeah. I think that's been somewhat the story of InsurTech 1.0. Is you have a lot of folks like you who, the tech savvy folks who have come off building, these other or working and building these other businesses where it was just like, hey, look how easy we made it to conduct business. So you get the Amazons and so on and so forth. Let's port that over to insurance and let's make it easier. I think that has been the story of 1.0, and 2.0 it's transitioning. As you said, I think you said a couple of keywords. How do you differentiate yourself? So you'll have now a bunch of carriers. They've made it easier for their customers to work with them. Now what? How can you differentiate yourself? How can you make your auto product better? How can you make your homeowner's product better? IoT, again, like let's keep adding those elements in and continue to evolve and raise it. I looked at I think recently I saw Amazon's original webpage, and it's laughable, right? In today's day and standards, and to what they have today, which is just like this really amazing place where you can just go there, click a button, and you buy something.
Yeah, I met with a chief digital officer just a little while ago, and this person told me that if you didn't have your website refreshed every 2 years, then you basically were going to be losing business to your competitor that was refreshing it more often than you, because they're up to speed on what the latest and greatest crazes are from a user experience perspective. And that's all what it comes down to at the end of the day for most people, is how easy it is to come to your site and buy something. I don't care if it's insurance. I don't care if it's, buying a new phone. I mean, everything needs to have the same kind of look and feel. And that's what everybody wants today. Everybody wants that Amazon experience to make it easy to buy something. And that's where insurers are starting to shift, and they're starting to see that, and they're starting to make their, applications a lot more user friendly, so people actually want to come use them.
Yeah. As a small tangent, Gmail just updated their app for the iPhone, and I opened up my Gmail and it was a different font, and it was better. Like I immediately, just a little smile to my face is like, oh, this is a little bit easier to read. I don't think insurers have yet appreciated the small stones that they're going to have to turn, and they're going to need to rely on a lot of companies like yours that can provide those insights that tell them you need to continuously iterate, continuously make it better, don't stop.
Exactly, and that's why we have 3 releases of our software a year, because there's always changes happening. We're always meeting with carriers that come up with some great new idea, and we're like, wow, okay, we will build that for you, but we'll productize it, and others are going to use it as well. And we love doing those sessions with some of our customers, and we do them every quarter just to find out, okay, what's on your roadmap? And then we'll explain to them, here's what's on our roadmap, and maybe there's some things that we enhance our roadmap with, from them. Yeah. So it really works. It's beneficial for both parties. It's great.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. Jason, I end every episode of Profiles in Risk by trying to get a little personal with the person that's in the torture chair. So I'm gonna ask you some personal questions, and let's have some fun.
Sure.
One that I've been asking recently is, what's your favorite vacation destination?
Oh man, favorite vacation destination. My wife just gave birth about 9 weeks ago, and before we took her on a baby moon. Well, thank you. We took on a baby moon actually to Florence, Italy. And I loved Italy. We also did Venice as well. And I'd have to say probably anywhere in Italy is my favorite vacation destination.
It's so coincidental. Right before we jumped on the call, I was on FaceTime with my daughter, and she's going to do study abroad. And she found a little place in San Marino, which is just east of Florence. And I was just like, yes, do it.
I am very jealous. I am very jealous of her. I'm sure she's going to have a blast.
Yeah, maybe I'll come visit.
I'm sure you will.
Okay, so you're Jason. You're in Florence, Italy, and you're stuck there. You're just it's torturous, So, but somebody's got to do it, and you can only listen to one album while you're there. That's it. You can't listen to anything else. What album would that be?
Wow. Wow, that's a really good question.
Mm.
It's something that always relaxes me when I'm on vacation. I love the Eagles live album, specifically Hotel California. I could probably just play that album over and over again. So I'd probably have to say that, or, I'm definitely a product of the 80s, even though I was born in the 70s. So I love a lot of 80s music. So I'd say probably The Cure as well, big on my list.
Nice. Good options there. Okay. I love asking this question because I love researching later on because I'm a lazy dude. So I'm just gonna steal your productivity. But do you have any tools or techniques? Doesn't have to be tech, but it could be that you use to stay productive and or organized.
Well, we live and die by Salesforce, to be quite honest. Our company's built on it, so we all utilize Salesforce heavily. I still, I still love Evernote. I still take a lot of notes on Evernote. I think Evernote is great. We also started using some new tools here from a marketing automation perspective, a new account-based marketing tool called Engagio that we're finding a lot of success with. And, and by way of teleconferencing, we use Zoom, and I know you use Zoom also, and we love Zoom. So we never have any problems with Zoom, and, my team utilizes it every day. But the thing that we're really starting to use a lot now is Engagio. It's really starting to give us some good visibility into who's touching our site, what organization they're with by way of what carrier they're with, what role they are in the organization. It's really giving us some visibility as to, who we should be targeting because they're targeting us.
Yeah, good. That's good to know. Never heard of them. So that'll be good research on my end. I love Zoom. We use Zoom to record these. I don't think a lot of people realize they have a free option, and I think it lets you record up to 40 minutes. So for anyone that's like doing podcasting or anything, it's like quick way, and the connection's always good. I got off a call on an Uber conference, and I got an email and said, "What can we improve on this?" And I was tempted to like switch to Zoom. I was tempted to reply all and just say switch to Zoom. It'll be a better experience. But yeah, I love that. Jason, my last question to you is on books. Have there been any that you have found to be influential in your business and or personal life? It could be either.
Yeah, so it's going to be funny, and I know I pound the Salesforce drum pretty hard, but I thought Mark Benioff's book, Behind the Cloud, was a game-changing book for me and the way that I look at business and just the way that I run my business as well. And so if people are listening to this and you have not read Behind the Cloud, I encourage you to do it. It is a great read, and it'll really give you a keen understanding of how to build a cloud business, what Mark Benioff was thinking about while he was building his, and it's truly a great read.
Awesome. I'm going to put all of that on the show notes. So if you're listening, you're driving, don't pull over. Just go to our website. Everything, all the links will be on the show notes to connect to Jason, to connect to Vlocity, and all of his recommendations for books, vacations, and technology. Jason, no better way to end a Friday than to have a peppy talk like this.
Well, Nick, I really appreciate your time. I think what you're doing is great. I love how you're educating folks about some of the latest things from an insurance perspective. Not everybody always thinks that insurance is fun. I do personally, and I think this is a great time to be in insurance. So I really thank you for inviting me onto the podcast.
Oh, you're just saying that. You say that to all the interviewers. My guest this week has been Jason Silver of Vlocity. Jason, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate your time and for inviting me onto this.